Hey coaches, this is John Simmons and I'm the campus pastor at our Midlothian campus, and just want to say just a word of appreciation, just how much we thank you for the time, the investment that you're making in our leaders for our adult small groups. We just know this is a big deal that really helps provide great community, great connection. Growth happens in these small groups. A lot of life change takes place, and the fact that you would go above and beyond to help us invest in those leaders, to be a frontline person who can have conversations with them and talk with them and encourage and be in the mountaintop moments and the valley moments, because we know that leading groups are not always the easiest, but we just really do thank you and appreciate your investment into Rush Creek Church through being a coach and being someone who these leaders can really lean in on and trust. So I wanted to just spend a little bit of time just encouraging you and maybe sharing some helpful tips when it comes to having your coaches meeting with your leaders that are in your huddle. And so we know that a lot of times we encourage you to be meeting with them regularly, having times you can check in, you can get them all together and just have some really good, healthy conversation. And so one of the first things I want to encourage you with is to prepare for these meetings. So that means making sure that it's not one of those last minutes you're having to just look at your calendar and realize like, oh, you haven't had it, so you send it out and try to get something together. But really have some rhythms of when you're going to meet with your leaders, and but making sure though that whenever you find that and you have those, that you've prepared well, so you're not rushing into it last minute. You're not just throwing things together and just again one of those checkbox moments where you got it done, but really spend time praying, asking God to give you some wisdom, some discernment on maybe what the content is that you need to be talking about with your leaders, being creative sometimes with them. Again, I believe a lot of the way that we model meeting with leaders in a coaching scenario really helps them to even see what it looks like for them to meet with the people in their groups. The time, the investment, the preparation that we put into it. So just make sure that you've gone through. You're praying for the leaders that you're coaching. Maybe even going back through some of the old notes that you took from your last meeting. Just making sure that you're being sensitive and aware of what's going on and what's happening in their lives and in their groups, to whenever you meet, you can kind of bring some of that stuff back up. And so maybe there's some of the resources that we have as a church that we've released, checking in with them on some of those things about what we would like for them as leaders to be making sure that they're tuning into and that they're checking out, would be a really great idea as you prepare and get ready to step into a really good meeting. Because the last thing anybody wants is to show up to something that feels like they could have just gotten it in an email. So there is some information to be exchanged, but there's also just that really good, meaningful time of hey, because I showed up, this was different than what I could have gotten in an email or even a Zoom call. But man, just the relationship, the connection that you can have through those coaches meetings. Next one is that when you're meeting with them, be fully present. I think that it's easy for us to get a huddle together and get our coaching group together. And then, it's something that we all have to practice, just being really mindful of things like our cell phone. Trying really hard not to even put it on the table, but keeping it in our pocket, not checking it, not sending text to people, because we all know how that feels when you're having a conversation with someone and they seem like their attention is divided. So I think that it's really important for our leaders to feel like they gave time to show up, to be a part of our coaching and us investing and pouring into them, and we've prepared, and so we want to make sure that we make them feel like they have our undivided attention. In fact, part of that means even practicing active listening. So one of the things that I feel like it might feel weird, or just another helpful tip is to have a journal, have something to where as they are talking, you can be writing things down. And then to even let them know that ahead of time, hey guys, look, I'm not listening to you. I'm not checking out here. I'm not just scribbling on some random stuff, but I want to make sure that I'm writing down things that you're saying so that I can either follow up and ask good questions around those, or it's something that I can be praying for, things that I can take back to our group's pastors and be asking them questions about to help you. And so we want to make sure that part of that is active listening, being present. And then again, whenever you're doing all of this, it just stair steps to us being able to ask really good questions. Because whenever you're listening, people sometimes drop some hints, or even a little bit of things where if you're listening, you can pick up on it. Some of the things that they're struggling in their group, or they're frustrated by something. And if you're listening well, you're taking good notes, it really helps us to be able to read that, and maybe through the Holy Spirit's discernment that we prayed in advance for, we pick up on some of those hints, or some of those comments that they might be making, to where our questions aren't just very surface level. It's really good to ask highs and lows. What's going really well in your group? What are some things we can help you with in your group? And there's nothing wrong with those. But I think sometimes whenever we are listening well, we can kind of push in a little bit on some of the things that they may be trying to tell us without telling us. And so we want to make sure that we're thinking about and processing through how to ask really good questions. And that means sometimes it's not asking yes or no questions, or ones that the answers could be really easy to answer, but it's ones where maybe they have to sit and think for a minute, and you kind of give them a little moment of silence to process it, and then they speak. And don't bail them out too soon. So many times we might ask a question and we kind of have an answer, or we have what we think is a good answer, so we bail them out too quick. And again, let them sit in that for a moment, and then think about a really good answer, or a well thought through response to some of the questions that you ask. But they've got to be really good, thought-provoking questions for them. And again, like I said, we want to celebrate the wins for their groups. And so we want to make sure that we have a moment that we say, listen, what are the things we can celebrate and win? Because we will always replicate what we celebrate. And so we want to make sure that we celebrate that with them. And then just, again, I think it's part of what we started is we said, hey, review your journal, your notes from the previous meeting. When you're taking those, you have some things that you can follow up on. So you say, listen, I want you to try this, this, and this. I'm going to follow up with you before our next meeting. But if you're actively listening, you're taking good notes, then it's going to be a really great opportunity and a really helpful way for you to be able to follow up after the meeting to make sure that they felt heard and valued, and that you understood what they were saying. And you want to make sure that you're doing everything that you can as a coach to have their back and to be supporting them. And so whatever you say you're going to follow up with, make sure that you follow up and follow through with all of that and get back with them. And I think that these just few tips for you will help you to have a really great coaching experience as you get those meetings together with your leaders and spend time investing and pouring in them. Again, not all exhaustive list here, a lot more that you can do, a lot more that goes on in these coaching huddles. But again, we are just so grateful for what you're doing. Hope that this is helpful for you, just a few quick tips and reminders, and hope that your next time that you meet with your leaders is extremely successful, extremely meaningful, and that your relationship with them and influence in them just continues to grow and grow and grow. So thank you guys so much.